The Galactic Confederation had seen many species rise and fall throughout the cosmos, but none had prepared them for humanity. When the humans first appeared on the galactic stage, the Confederation's military analysts dismissed them as another, primitive species, soft, fragile, and laughably weak compared to the galaxy's established warrior races. Commander Zethkar of the Valorian Empire stood 8 feet tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights of the orbital command station. His species had conquered 17 star systems through sheer physical dominance. Beside him, General Thoxmar from the Krillian hegemony flexed his 6 muscular arms, each capable of crushing steel. The assembled War Council represented the most feared military forces in known space. "The humans have rejected our ultimatum," announced Admiral Vexthul, her crystalline form refracting light as she spoke. "They refuse to surrender their homeworld and submit to Confederation authority." A collective rumble of amusement echoed through the chamber. The idea that these pink, 2-armed creatures would resist the combined might of the galaxy's greatest warriors seemed absurd. "Then we shall demonstrate why resistance is futile," growled Commander Zethkar. "I volunteer to lead the first assault. A single battalion of my Valorian shock troopers will be sufficient." The invasion fleet that descended upon Earth 3 days later was magnificent in its terrible glory. 12 massive dreadnoughts carrying the elite forces of 6 different warrior species, each vessel capable of glassing a continent. They expected token resistance before the inevitable surrender. What they found instead was Corporal Marcus Chen. Marcus had washed out of basic training twice. His drill sergeants had written him off as the weakest recruit they'd ever seen. Too small, too slow, too prone to panic under pressure. At 5'6" and barely 140 pounds, he looked more like a librarian than a soldier. The only reason he'd been allowed to complete his service was a clerical error that assigned him to planetary defense communications. When the alien ships appeared in Earth's skies, Marcus was manning a remote sensor station in the Australian outback, forgotten by his superiors and armed with nothing but an aging plasma rifle and a head full of science fiction movies. The first wave of Valorian shock troopers landed like meteors, their powered armor crackling with energy shields. Each warrior stood twice Marcus's height and moved with predatory grace. Their commander, Sub-Admiral Keshetal, had specifically requested this easy assignment to test his new troops against weak opposition. Marcus watched through his scope as the aliens methodically destroyed a nearby research station, their weapons cutting through reinforced concrete like paper. His hands trembled as he radioed for backup, only to receive static in response. The orbital bombardment had severed all communication networks. He should have run. Any sensible person would have fled into the wilderness and hidden until the fighting ended. Instead, Marcus found himself thinking about his little sister back in Sydney, about his parents who still believed he might make something of himself, about the millions of people who had nowhere to run. The Valorians were advancing in a standard formation when Marcus took his first shot. The plasma bolt struck the lead warrior's energy shield and dissipated harmlessly. The aliens paused, scanning for the source of the attack with casual interest rather than concern. "A survivor," rumbled Sub-Admiral Keshetal through his suit's external speakers. "Dispose of it quickly, we have a schedule to maintain." But Marcus didn't die quickly. He fell back through the rocky terrain, using every piece of cover available. His shots couldn't penetrate their armor, but they served as distractions. When 2 warriors moved to flank him, he triggered a landslide using mining charges left by the research team. When they tried to flush him out with heavy weapons, he used the underground cave system to emerge behind their lines. Hours passed. Then days. The Valorians, bred for overwhelming frontal assaults, found themselves frustrated by an enemy who refused to stand and fight. Marcus hit and ran, set traps, used psychological warfare, and employed every dirty trick human militaries had perfected over millennia of warfare. When his ammunition ran low, he raided their supply drops. When they adapted to his tactics, he changed them. He turned their own superior technology against them, reprogramming captured equipment and using their communication frequencies to spread false orders. Most importantly, Marcus learned, each encounter taught him something new about his enemies, their blind spots, their protocols, their weaknesses. The Valorians relied on their equipment so completely that they'd forgotten how to adapt when that equipment failed them. By the end of the first week, Sub-Admiral Keshetal had lost half his troops. To a single human, the proud warrior who had expected an easy victory found himself requesting reinforcements, then air support, then orbital bombardment authorization. "How?" demanded Commander Zethkar when the reports reached the fleet. "How does one primitive defeat our finest warriors?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Ilara Voss, a human xenobiologist who had been captured in the first assault, overheard the alien commanders debating their next move. "You don't understand what you're fighting," she told them quietly. "You see weakness where humans see adaptability. You measure strength in muscle and armor, but we measure it in persistence and ingenuity. That weakest soldier of ours has something your finest warriors lack. The knowledge that strength isn't about what you can lift or how hard you can hit. It's about refusing to give up when everything seems hopeless." Commander Zethkar struck the table with enough force to crack its surface. "Nonsense! Inferior genetics cannot overcome superior breeding and equipment." But doubt had crept into the council chamber. Reports were coming in from across the planet. Human resistance was stiffening everywhere. Small units were holding off vastly superior forces through cunning and determination. The quick subjugation was turning into a prolonged campaign that was bleeding the Confederation's finest troops. In the outback, Marcus Chen held his position for 3 more days before reinforcements finally arrived. When the human fleet descended from the outer system, not to surrender but to counterattack, the Galactic Confederation faced a terrible realization. They had measured humanity by their own standards and found them wanting. But humans didn't play by alien rules. They didn't need to be the strongest or the fastest or the most heavily armed. They just needed to be the most stubborn, the most creative, and the most unwilling to accept defeat. As the evacuation sirens wailed through the Confederation fleet, Commander Zethkar stared at the tactical displays showing their crumbling positions worldwide. One weak human had held off his finest troops long enough for their entire invasion to collapse. In the end, humanity's weakest soldier had taught the galaxy's strongest warriors a lesson they would never forget. True strength isn't measured in what you are, but in what you refuse to stop being. Marcus Chen returned to his post at the sensor station, still technically the worst soldier in Earth's military. But the Galactic Confederation would remember his name for centuries to come, not as a warrior to be feared, but as a reminder that sometimes the smallest light can hold back the darkest night.